But I was too scared to try, to fail, or to be seen like this. He glanced down, then back up, his voice cracking with raw emotion. The music stirred something deep inside. A secret longing, a silent courage he never knew he had. In that moment, everything changed. This is the story of Shirley and perhaps Jack, of fear, hope, and the power to be truly seen. Hi everyone. Welcome to my channel. I'm so glad you're here to hear this special story about courage, music, and finding your voice. Thank you for taking the time to listen and share in Shirley's journey. Your support means the world to me. Let's dive in together. Shirley Martins was the kind of girl most people didn't notice. At Arizona Elementary, the playground was always loud with children running, shouting, and playing tag. But Shirley didn't join in. Instead, she sat quietly under the big oak tree that stood near the edge of the schoolyard, its thick branches spreading wide and casting cool shade over the dry, dusty ground. Her clothes were worn and faded, hand-me-downs from her older cousins that didn't quite fit right. The sleeves were a little too long, and the seams had tiny tears here and there. Most days, Shirley tugged at the sleeves and tried to fold the edges so no one would stare. But she was used to the looks, the whispers, and the way other kids would walk past without saying hello. "Hey, Shirley, what's that smell? Is that your lunch again?" Someone called out one day. Shirley glanced up and saw a group of kids snickering near the swings. Her heart sank, but she didn't answer. She kept her head down and bit into her plain sandwich. Jack was always near when Shirley was alone. He was the class clown, the kid with the loud laugh and quick jokes. When he wasn't making everyone else laugh, he liked to pick on Shirley. "Hey, slowpoke, what's the matter? Afraid to play with us?" he teased, grinning with his crooked teeth. The other kids laughed, and Shirley wished she could disappear. "Why don't you ever come play?" asked Lily one afternoon, a girl from Shirley's class, who sometimes tried to be nice. Shirley shrugged, not trusting her voice to be strong enough to answer. "I don't know," she finally whispered, staring at the grass beneath her. Inside, Shirley's mind was filled with a secret world, one where she wasn't invisible. She imagined herself on a stage, shining bright, playing her violin with every note full of life and magic. The violin was old and scratched, its strings worn thin, but to Shirley it was the most precious thing she owned. Her mother had given it to her before she passed away. "Play with your heart," her mother had said softly. Shirley didn't understand what that meant back then, but now she felt it every time she touched the smooth wood and pulled the bow across the strings. Most kids thought Shirley was just a quiet, lonely girl. They didn't see how her fingers could dance over the strings, creating melodies that felt like stories. Stories about dreams, sadness, and hope. No one knew she practiced every day after school in the tiny apartment she shared with her Aunt May, where the walls were thin and the world outside seemed far away. At school, Shirley kept her violin hidden in a soft cloth case tucked at the bottom of her backpack. It wasn't something she wanted to show off. Not yet. She was afraid that if anyone heard her play, they would laugh. But she dreamed of the day she could stand in front of everyone and let the music speak for her. One afternoon, as Shirley sat under the oak tree nibbling on her sandwich, Jack bounced over, eyes sparkling with mischief. "Hey, Shirley," he said, "I dare you to play that violin at the school assembly next week. Bet you can't make a sound without messing up." Shirley's heart skipped. She looked down at the cracked bark of the tree, feeling a mix of fear and something else. Excitement. Maybe. She didn't say yes or no. She just stared quietly, her fingers tightening around the crust of her sandwich. Jack laughed, thinking it was just a joke. "Ha, that'll be a show," he said, running back to his friends, who cheered. But inside Shirley, the dare planted a tiny spark. Could she do it? Could she stand in front of all those noisy kids and play her violin? The thought made her stomach twist with nerves, but deep down, a small hope started to grow. Maybe, just maybe, this was her chance to be seen. She wiped a tear that had slipped down her cheek and hugged the violin case closer. The big oak tree whispered in the wind above her, as if telling her to hold on, to believe. Shirley felt sad, but held a secret hope in her heart. At recess, the playground buzzed with the usual noise. Kids running, shouting, and playing tag. But all Shirley heard was Jack's voice, loud and teasing. "Come on, Shirley. Play your violin at the school assembly next week. Bet you'll mess up and make us all laugh." He laughed, his friends joining in with the teasing chorus. The other kids pointed and snickered. "Yeah, show us what you got, Shirley," one called. The laughter grew louder, sharp and quick like a sudden storm. Shirley felt her cheeks burn, her hands trembling as she clutched the strap of her backpack tighter. No one ever dared to ask her to do anything in front of the whole school. This wasn't a game. She didn't say no. She didn't say yes either. She just stayed silent, staring at the cracked pavement beneath her shoes. When the bell rang, signaling the end of recess, Shirley slipped away quietly, her heart pounding hard enough she thought it might break. At home, the small apartment smelled faintly of lavender and old books. Aunt May was in the kitchen, washing dishes at the sink, humming a soft tune. The kitchen was cramped, with peeling paint on the walls and a tiny window that let in dusty sunlight. Shirley liked this little space. It was quiet and safe, far from the loudness of school. Aunt May looked over her shoulder and smiled gently when Shirley came inside. "How was school, Shirley?" she asked quietly. Shirley didn't answer right away. Aunt May wiped her hands on a rag and moved closer. "You don't have to say anything," she said. "Just remember, music is your own voice. You play it for yourself first." Shirley nodded but didn't speak. She went to the small corner where her violin rested on a worn-out chair. The violin looked tired, the varnish scratched, the wood worn smooth in places. The strings buzzed when plucked, and sometimes the notes slipped off key because the instrument was out of tune. But to Shirley, it was perfect. She lifted the violin carefully, placing it under her chin. Her fingers found the strings, light and sure. Slowly, she drew the bow across the strings. The sound was soft, almost trembling, a gentle melody that floated through the tiny room like a whisper. She played again, this time faster. Her fingers moved with more confidence, the bow gliding smoothly, creating a sound rich with vibrato, a little shake that made the notes sing like voices in the wind. She closed her eyes, feeling the music swell inside her chest. It started as a soft murmur and grew louder, rising into a crescendo that filled the room with energy. Every note carried a piece of her heart, the fear she felt, the sadness from being alone, and the small hope that maybe, just maybe, this time she could show the world who she really was. She imagined the faces of her classmates, surprised and quiet, listening to the music and understanding something they never had before. Her fingers moved faster now, dancing over the strings. The melody twisted and turned, sometimes sweet and slow, sometimes bright and quick like sunlight bouncing off leaves. The bow was steady, firm in her hand. The violin sang stories she couldn't say with words. Aunt May watched from the doorway, a quiet pride in her eyes. "Remember, Shirley," she said softly, "music is brave. It's truth. It's the part of you that no one can take away." Shirley swallowed hard. Her hand shook slightly, but her heart steadied. The thought of playing in front of the whole school didn't feel so impossible anymore. She didn't know if she would be ready, or if the music would carry her all the way, but she decided she would try. Shirley was scared but determined, feeling the music give her strength. The day of the school assembly arrived faster than Shirley expected. The auditorium at Arizona Elementary was packed with students, teachers, and a few parents. The bright stage lights made the wooden floor shine like glass, and the murmurs of hundreds of voices bounced off the high ceiling. Shirley sat backstage, clutching her violin case, her heart pounding so loudly she was sure everyone could hear it. From where she waited, she could see the sea of faces in the audience. Some were familiar, her classmates chatting, and whispering, some with amused smiles, others with curious eyes. The teachers sat straighter in their chairs, their faces calm but expectant. She caught a glimpse of Principal Jenkins, who gave her a small nod that felt like a silent, "You can do this." Behind her, Jack was still joking with his friends, but even he looked a little quieter than usual. Shirley took a deep breath, trying to steady the shaking in her hands. The door opened, and it was her turn. Stepping onto the stage, Shirley felt the weight of every eye on her. Her bow trembled in her hand as she moved to the center, where a single microphone waited. The room suddenly grew silent, the whispers and laughter folding away like a closing curtain. She raised her violin to her chin and looked out over the crowd. The faces blurred for a moment, and she focused on the strings beneath her fingers. Then she drew her bow slowly across the strings. At first, the music was soft, a gentle melody that floated like a feather in the air. The notes were shaky at first, uncertain, but they carried a quiet feeling of hope, like the first light of dawn breaking through a dark sky. Shirley closed her eyes and let the music flow from her heart, pushing away the fear. Gradually, her playing grew stronger. The bow moved faster, and the notes deepened with more vibrato, shaking and trembling in a way that made the melody feel alive. The sound grew louder, building like a wave rising on the ocean, rising higher and higher, until it reached a powerful crescendo that filled the entire room. Some students gasped quietly. Others sat frozen, their eyes wide. The laughter and teasing that Shirley had expected melted away, replaced by something she had never imagined: attention, respect, and awe. She played on, the music telling a story without words, a story of struggle, of being small but fierce, of holding on to dreams even when everything felt impossible. Her fingers danced across the strings, moving with more confidence and grace as the song reached its heart. As the last note lingered in the silence, the room stayed still for a long moment. No one moved or breathed too loudly. Shirley opened her eyes and looked up, surprised to see tears shining in the eyes of some students and even a few teachers. Jack was staring, his usual grin gone. The room had changed in that single performance. Shirley wasn't just the quiet girl under the oak tree anymore. For the first time, everyone saw her, not just her old clothes or her silence, but the music inside her. Shirley felt the music flow through her, connecting with every soul in the room. The last note of Shirley's song hung in the air, soft and trembling, before fading into silence. For a moment, nobody moved. The audience sat frozen, caught in the magic of what they had just heard. Then, from the very back of the auditorium, a boy stood up. It was Jack, the class clown, the one who had dared Shirley to play. But now, tears were running down his cheeks, and his shoulders shook as if he were trying to hold back a storm. Everyone's eyes turned to him, confused and surprised. Jack wiped his face roughly with the back of his hand and spoke in a voice that was quieter than anyone expected. I've always wanted to learn the violin," he said, looking toward Shirley. "But I was too scared to try, to fail, or to be seen like this." He glanced down, then back up, his voice cracking with emotion. "Hearing you play, it made me feel things I didn't understand before. It's like the music showed me a part of me I didn't know was there." The room stayed silent, stunned by his honesty. Shirley's heart raced. She hadn't expected this. Jack's tears weren't from mocking her anymore. They were real. Then, from the side of the stage, a woman stepped forward. She moved with quiet confidence and grace, her eyes shining with pride and something else: hope. It was Aunt May. The crowd gasped. Whispers spread quickly. "Is that Aunt May, the famous violin teacher? The one who disappeared years ago?" Aunt May smiled softly and nodded. "Yes, it's me," she said, her voice steady. "I've been watching Shirley all this time, and I'm so proud of her. But more than that, I want to help. I want to teach anyone here who wishes to learn the violin." She looked directly at Jack. "Starting with you." Jack blinked, clearly shocked. Shirley's eyes widened. The whole school seemed to hold its breath. The principal stepped forward and clapped his hands. "We welcome Aunt May back with open arms," he said. "This is a wonderful chance for all of us." Students began whispering excitedly. Some raised their hands, eager to learn. The auditorium that had once been filled with laughter and teasing was now alive with possibility and hope. Jack looked over at Shirley. For the first time, there was no teasing in his eyes, only respect, and something close to friendship. Shirley smiled quietly, her heart softening. They didn't need words. This moment said everything. Aunt May walked over to Shirley and hugged her tightly. "You were brave today," she said. "You played with your heart, just like I always hoped you would." Shirley felt tears prick at her eyes, but this time they were tears of joy. The lonely girl under the oak tree was no longer invisible. She had changed everything, with music, courage, and a little secret hope. Surprise, tears, forgiveness, new hope. Jack and Shirley share a quiet smile. After that unforgettable day, Shirley's world began to change in ways she never imagined. She wasn't the quiet, invisible girl sitting alone under the big oak tree anymore. Now she had friends, starting with Jack. They met every afternoon in the music room after school. At first, Jack fumbled with the violin strings, awkward and unsure. But Shirley was patient, guiding his fingers gently, showing him how to hold the bow just right and how to listen for the softest notes. Together, they practiced scales and simple melodies, laughing at mistakes and celebrating small victories. "Your vibrato is getting better," Shirley said one day, smiling as Jack's bow moved more steadily across the strings. "See, you're not so bad." Jack grinned, brushing a stray hair from his forehead. "Thanks, Shirley. I never thought I could do this." Other students watched and soon joined in. Word spread quickly, and the school buzzed with excitement about a special concert they planned. A celebration of music, friendship, and courage. It wasn't just about playing notes anymore. It was about sharing stories, feelings, and dreams through their music. On the night of the concert, the auditorium filled once again. This time, the crowd was different. It was warm and full of cheering faces, ready to listen and support. Shirley stood on stage with her violin, her heart steady and full of joy. Jack stood beside her, bow in hand, ready to play their first duet. As their music began, soft and sweet, the audience smiled, some wiping away tears. Shirley's melodies carried the story of her journey: loneliness, fear, hope, and finally, belonging. The notes danced through the room like sunlight, touching everyone's hearts. After the concert, Shirley walked outside to the familiar oak tree. This time, she wasn't alone. Friends sat beside her, chatting and laughing softly. The tree's branches stretched wide overhead, offering a peaceful shelter. Shirley cradled her violin in her lap, feeling its smooth wood and worn strings beneath her fingers. "I never thought I'd have friends like this," she said quietly, looking around at the smiles. One of the kids nudged her playfully. "You earned it, Shirley. You showed us all what it means to be brave." Shirley smiled, the warmth of belonging filling her chest. The violin rested ready beside her, a reminder of how far she'd come. The girl who once sat alone had found strength, not just in music, but in kindness and courage. Under the big oak tree, surrounded by friends, Shirley felt a peace she had never known. Her music had changed everything, and so had she. Joy, belonging, strength from within, the power of music and kindness. Thank you so much for watching. If Shirley's story touched your heart, please like this video, subscribe for more inspiring stories, share it with friends who need a little hope today, and leave a comment below telling me what you felt. Your support helps us all grow stronger together.